The thing with forgiveness in my life is it's what's seen me through. It's really, really, really what's seen me through. And so many people I talk to, especially in church circles, I don't believe actually have the comprehension of what forgiveness is really about. Now, before I get started, because my background is in the Pentecostal church and I've been through Bible college, I may use words that sound religious, but I'm not a God botherer. I'm not a God botherer, but I am a gay man, just in case you haven't noticed.
I'm in the cone of silence. Sorry.
But I have a passion of being connected to spirit. Now, just quickly, we drew this diagram last week, just to refresh people's memories. If we call this the universe or the collective consciousness or the spirit, whatever you want to call it, it could be universes. This is Earth, and that little speck is me. As a separate little speck, what am I? Absolutely nothing in the scheme of things. But when I'm connected to spirit, that's what I'm a part of. And it's that gets me excited. And it's that where my power lies and my greatness lies. And that goes the same for absolutely everybody that's here. And it's just a powerful little diagram that just shows us what it is to be connected. So, forgiveness. What are the risks, for want of another word, of not operating in forgiveness? We have disconnection. We have frustration. And if we want to get religious about it, if you're walking in unforgiveness, you can actually be creating a hell for yourself. So just on that religious note, I'm not a believer in heaven or hell as a place we go to. I believe heaven or hell is what we make it here. Mm-hmm. And unforgiveness, walking in unforgiveness, can create a living hell for you. And it definitely creates separation and disconnection, not only from spirit, from those around you. The benefits from walking in salvation, us walking in forgiveness, hallelujah!
You're just following on from that music, John.
Walking in forgiveness does bring freedom. It does bring connection. And for want of another word, it does bring salvation. And that's what I want to show you guys today, that forgiveness is one of the most important keys to be able to connect to spirit, connect to God, connect to the collective consciousness. Just reflecting on what I said last week, words are nothing more than a signpost to the truth. So please don't get caught up on them. It's that simple. If we think that we can describe spirit or the collective consciousness or the universe with a few vowels, a handful of consonants, and some English language, we're sadly mistaken. This goes beyond the natural thinking. It goes beyond natural words. So please don't get caught up on my words. But what we're going for today is an understanding of what forgiveness is. So you can actually leave here and grow that in your life. So I'd like you to stop and just think for a moment about a situation in your life that may have very well caused you a lot of pain, that was done by someone else, and that may have caused you grief, and that it took a lot to forgive. You may even not have completely forgiven that person or that situation as yet. How does it feel? You're disconnected. It feels heavy. It's a weight. Now, science has actually proven that can actually produce sickness in your body. Those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions can actually manifest as sickness in your body. So that's just another reason why forgiveness is such an incredibly powerful tool to walk with, because it's a big part of what sets you free. What we need to know and understand about forgiveness is the dictionary's definition of what forgiveness is to excuse for a fault or an offence, to renounce anger or resentment against, or to absolve from payment. That's the dictionary's definition. Forgiveness is all about you. It has very little to do with the person that you actually are aiming your forgiveness at. And that's where I think a lot of religious institutions go wrong, because they think that forgiveness is about letting the other person off the hook. It's actually got nothing to do with it. It's got more to do with you and setting yourself free. Unforgiveness is the unwillingness to forgive what are the consequences, the unwillingness to forgive. The consequences of those, as we spoke about before, are disconnection, separation, hell, and not moving forward. Unforgiveness is actually ignorance. If you're walking in unforgiveness, you're actually also walking in a level of ignorance for not understanding what forgiveness is. It's a judgment and a behaviour that doesn't serve. So if I'm unforgiving towards you, I've passed a judgment on you. The moment that I've passed a judgment on you, I've separated myself from you. What people don't understand from that perspective is if there is a behaviour that you are portraying to me that doesn't serve me or serve my highest good, there's nothing wrong with moving away from that behaviour. But as soon as I've judged it, I've actually disconnected myself from you. Now here's the little truth. You actually cannot, it's impossible for you to disconnect yourself from another human being. If you're maintaining a connection to spirit. If we just go back to this diagram for a minute, we are all a part of this. So we've got the large circle, we've got the smaller circle which represents Earth, and that dot is you. If you're a part of this, how can you separate yourself from it? How can you separate yourself from another human being? It's actually impossible to do. Now, when you walk in unforgiveness, you separate yourself from another being. Now, what that creates is hell. Absolute hell. Now, it may only be with one person, it may be with two people, it may be with three people. But if you're disconnected from another person, you're disconnected from this. You're disconnected from spirit. Now, when I say disconnected, what I'm talking about is living a full and an abundant life. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about creating a heaven on earth. I'm talking about being connected with the greater good, the living consciousness, spirit, God, whatever label you choose to put on it. That's what I'm talking about. As soon as you pass a judgment or walk with unforgiveness, you're disconnecting yourself from that. And therein lies the insanity of the world. If you look at wars and you look at some of the things that religion has also created, it's all about creating that disconnection. So what these Sunday sessions are about are about bringing that connection back to spirit. So, while I'm on that subject, while you're passing a judgment on someone or while you're walking with unforgiveness to someone, the truth is that person is behaving in a manner that is caused through ignorance. And that's why understanding ignorance is a big part of walking in forgiveness. There are so many stories that I could share with you. Let me ask you this. Can we remain connected to spirit with unforgiveness in our hearts? And the answer is no. And then we also then come back with saying, yes, but what about what they did to me? What about what they did to me? It was unfair, it was unjust, it was hurtful. To give you an example of this in my own life, when I got to a point where I was basically asked to leave church. I was asked to step down from children's church ministry out of fear of my influence on the young boys in children's church. You may as well have stabbed me with a knife. I was asked to step down from leading the worship because they couldn't have a man that represented a gay lifestyle in a leadership position in front of the church. Again, there was another knife. And at that stage, I wasn't even out yet. I was still fighting my sexuality. There were so many things that I was asked to step down from and was stripped from me. It was painful. It hurt. I had resentment. I had anger. I had frustration. I had unforgiveness in my heart. And it took a process and a time for me to understand what was going on. But when I came to that place of being connected back with spirit, I could understand that these people operated out of nothing more than ignorance. So when someone hurts you or offends you, they're operating out of ignorance. They just don't know any better. Now, forgive me for being religious and bringing Jesus Christ up, but when he hung on the cross, according to the story, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Those people operated out of ignorance. That's the level of forgiveness that we need to walk with to maintain a connection to spirit. And just to reiterate, I'm not a God botherer, and I'm not into being a part of any religion or denomination or being labelled as a part of one. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of great stories in the Bible that really can teach us a lot of stuff as well. So, moving on from that, why do people do what they do to us? What are they operating out of? I love this diagram. On one side of the board we'll draw love, and on the other side of the board we'll draw fear. So, for example, with what the church did to me, what were they operating out of? Fear. They didn't know anything about homosexuality. They didn't know anything about who I was or what I had the potential to be. And the fact that I was successful in the ministry and still representing a gay man really scared the living daylights out of them. Have you guys got any examples?
I guess just in every day, if you're compelled to go with something or follow your heart, and you're taking on a training or a practice which is serving your highest, which is your path, gives you, it gives you purpose and fulfillment, then that's changing your life, but also changes other people's around you, the way they perceive you.
Absolutely.
And that could either be, that could be for you, that could uplift you with you, or they can push their buttons and say, well, just that experience, they can really annoy them.
Absolutely.
And then they will start putting on their beliefs onto you.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? They're judging you.
Yeah.
So where does judgment come from?
Fear.
Judgment comes from fear. Collusion or gossip. I don't know how to spell it, but that's right. Judgment and collusion comes from fear. Absolutely. Why do people hate?
Yeah.
Because of fear. When someone has taken something from you, why have they taken something from you? Because they want something. So again, it comes back to, stealing. Now, stealing can be emotional. It can be physical. But all those things, it doesn't matter what someone's done to you, we could list them down here in fear, and it would all fit under that. So love doesn't have judgment. Love doesn't collude. Love doesn't hate. Love doesn't steal. Now, we could call it love, or we could call it spirit, or we could call it God. Doesn't matter what label, again, you want to use on it. But love is a force that brings life. If it doesn't bring life, it's not love. It's that simple. If it doesn't bring life, if it doesn't bring life, it's not love. It's that simple. Fear is about retracting and about bringing it in. Love is about giving it out. Fear is introverted. Love is expansive. So, again, when the church was operating out of that, as far as my relationship with the church was concerned, their behaviour was coming all from this side, all from fear. Now, I'm not denying for one moment that it didn't throw me into fear as well. It did. It threw me straight into fear because I was told that I could not have a relationship with God. Now, from a church's perspective, that means I'm going to burn in hell for eternity. Now, if that's your belief system, that's pretty damn scary. So I had to work through that fear. Thankfully, I had a connection to spirit and threw myself into that, which allowed me to come to the understanding that I now have about forgiveness. Now, to just show you to what level that I've chosen to operate out of this from a personal perspective, is the pastors of the church I'm actually related to. So I have to choose to walk in forgiveness and walk in love every time I meet these people. And sometimes it's hard. I'm human. If you cut me, I bleed. But what enables me and empowers me to do it is that connection to spirit, that connection to the collective consciousness, that connection to love, to God. Does that make sense? So it's very easy to ascertain whether you're walking in forgiveness or not by simply asking yourself, are your actions towards the person that have done you wrong out of love or out of fear? Are they bringing life or are they bringing disconnection? So it makes the answer very, very, very simple. Very simple. So let me ask you this, we're going back to the same diagram. Why do we seek justice or payment? We've got love again and we've got fear. I'll give you an example again out of my own life. While I was at school, I had a lot of issues with the boys at school, bashing me up and doing all sorts of things. And because I came from a very religious background, there was a right way to be and a wrong way to be. And these boys were being wrong and I was right. And I wanted justice. Why did I want justice? I want justice because I'm frightened it's going to happen again. Why do I want judgment on those boys? Because I'm frightened it's going to happen again. Why do I want those things to occur? Because I have to be right. Why do I have to be right? Because if I'm wrong, fear comes up. Does that make sense? So if I have to be right or wrong, I'm operating out of fear. If I have to see someone punished for what they did for me, I'm disconnecting myself from them and I'm operating out of fear because what if it happens again? So what is it I'm going for? Effectively, I'm going for safety in my own life. If I'm going for safety, what am I operating out of? Fear. It really is that simple. Now, what unforgiveness is really about is that there is a way that it has to be. And we're trying to bring it back to that way we believe it has to be. Now here's another interesting thought for you. If the deed has already been done and there's a way it has to be, can you change it? You can't change it. So if you're walking with unforgiveness, what is it? It's a condition on your past. It's the way things should have been, the way things needed to be. So if you're living out of your past, are you living in the present moment? Can you be connected to spirit or to love or to God or the collective consciousness while you're living out of your past? It's impossible. It's a pretty heavy burden to be carrying. And I tell you what, when you walk down the street, if you choose to look at people from a spiritual perspective, you can see them carrying this stuff around. Now, again, I'm no angel. I don't have this perfect in my own life, but I know what it is to carry that weight around. I carried it for many, many, many years until the revelation and the understanding of what forgiveness really is grew on the inside of me. And that grew through my desire for the connection to spirit. So it's amazing when we look at things. I tell you what, the best to understand this, if you want to have a look at this at a deeper level in your own time, the best place that this stuff comes up is with your family. If you ever want to be tested with this stuff and to know where you're at, it's with your family. Now, let me put it to you this way too. Unforgiveness and forgiveness. Am I putting a judgment on it? Not at all. Not at all. But there's a consequence. Forgiveness keeps you connected. Forgiveness keeps you connected to spirit, connected with those around you. Unforgiveness is what separates you. It's just a consequence. Operate in whatever one you want to. But I don't want to carry a weight around. I don't want to carry that unforgiveness around. And I tell you what, it may only be one person in your life, may only be one person in your past that you're holding unforgiveness towards, but it will affect every one of your other relationships. And it will come up and come up and come up until you're in a place that you're prepared to move forward and deal with it. So, if we are connected to spirit, let me ask you this question. Well, let me just rephrase that. If we are a part of spirit, if we're a part of the collective consciousness, if we're a part of God, so let's go back to this diagram with the big circle representing the collective consciousness or the universes or the big picture. Little circle is Earth, that's you. That little dot's you. You're connected to all things through all time and space. So in essence, and I'm sure most of us here would agree, we're a spirit being. We're here having a physical experience. If you are connected to spirit and you're a part of the big picture, can somebody else take from you?
Only with your permission.
But even still, if you're connected to spirit, here's the little epiphany that I had not that long ago. Even if they were to take my physical life, they can't take anything from me.
No, not in that regard.
Not in that regard. So from a spiritual perspective, if you are connected to spirit and you understand that you are a part of the big picture and that you are loved, cherished and supported by the universe, as long as you're operating out of love and forgiveness and moving forward, can another man take anything from you?
Not really, no.
Can another man judge you? Well, they can, but does it affect you? Doesn't have to affect you. If we another man can't destroy us, another man can't take our life, another man can't rob from us, and another man can't take from us. Why? Because we're a part of the big picture. We're a part of the all. We're a part of spirit. My supply doesn't come from you. The love that I have in me doesn't come from you. My physical possessions might be one thing, but take them away from me, and am I still connected to spirit? Do I still have life? Do I still have abundance? Absolutely. Now again, this isn't something that you can get with your head. So don't think about it too much. You can't get this with your head. But we're living in a material world, and the material world is nothing more than a reflection of the diversity of the Creator. Whatever you want to label it. If we were to take those things away from us, it may take away a physical experience, but it can't take away who we are as far as a spiritual being is concerned. You look very deep in thought there, Ian. I tell you what, if you get this revelation, it really sets you free. It really sets you free. I'm going to share another personal story with you. Cutting a very long story short, I met my father for the first time when I was 24, and I think some of you might know this story. 6 months after I met him, he begged and pleaded to take me on a holiday to Tasmania because he wanted to buy a block of land with me. And looking back on it, I actually got big warning bells that wasn't a good idea, but desiring a father, because I never had one, I so desperately wanted a father. Now, when I'm saying I desperately wanted a father, I'm talking about a physical being that I could touch and I could hold and I could call Dad. Doesn't seem that unrealistic for someone to want that, does it? But it's a physical thing. And I have to be honest, I had expectations and conditions of what my father was going to be like. So we went on a holiday to Tasmania, and for a host of reasons, he decided to beat the living daylights out of me. So I actually had to get out of Tasmania quite quickly and come back home. Now, this is where the story comes back to what we're talking about. I was sitting on my bed at home in absolute tears, not understanding why I couldn't have a father. Why would my father do this to me? Why would he hurt me so badly? Now, I passed judgment on my father. I had conditions and expectations on my father of how he had to behave. He didn't fulfill those. He behaved in exactly the opposite way. That crushed me. It hurt me, and I had resentment and unforgiveness not only towards him, but what I believed was unforgiveness and hurt towards God for allowing that situation to happen. Now, I at that very point had a choice. I could carry that hurt and that pain and that rejection and go through life going, woe is me, I'll never have a father. And the father I do have is a horrible man. Or I can choose to remain connected to spirit. I was sitting on my bed and I decided to begin to pray. And my personal experience was I tangibly felt 2 arms around me. And the words that came to me, which from my perspective were audible, I'm always there for you. If you want to go fly a kite, I'll fly a kite with you. If you want to go for a bike ride, I'll go bike riding with you. If you want to kick a soccer ball, I'll kick a soccer ball with you. I am all that you need. Now back then, because of my religious circles, I placed those words on God as a separate entity to me. But effectively, those words were a part of spirit. They were a part of love. They were a part of the collective consciousness. I don't need to have a physical relationship with my Father of any sort for me to be connected to spirit and live an abundant life. Now, if I held on to that unforgiveness and that hurt and that pain, I would disconnect myself from my Father. But after that experience, I was able to let go of that. So I actually wrote a letter to my dad, explaining how much I loved him. It didn't excuse what he had done, but I loved him. If he wanted to still maintain a relationship with me, that would be fine, but he'd need to understand that we would have to meet in a public place. So I set up the boundaries and I walked with love. The relationship that I now have with my dad is not that bad. It's not that bad at all. I don't see him that regularly because he still has conditions and expectations of how our relationship needs to be. But I understand that he did what he did because he knew no better. He was operating out of a place of hurt and pain and ignorance to who he is and what he is a part of. I just happened to be the person in the way. Now his behaviour didn't serve me, so I moved away from that behaviour. I didn't cut him off. I didn't hold unforgiveness or resentment towards him, which has allowed me to stay connected to spirit. And even better than that, when we walk in that fashion, we actually have the ability to make a difference in someone's life. My father finds it hard to fathom that I actually still have a relationship with him. But I continually say to him, I don't necessarily like what you do, but it doesn't change the fact that I love you. And it really is that simple. It doesn't matter who it is. We can still walk in that same level of in forgiveness and connection. That's another little story. I've had a wonderful life because it's just taught me so many different things. So unforgiveness is about the way that things should have been or should be. Expectations of how others should behave or should have behaved. Unforgiveness is about judgment. What's the end result? Disconnection. Straight away, the end result is disconnection. Now let me draw this for you. I haven't got this diagram in my notes, but it's a diagram that's been coming to me all morning, so I feel led to share it. If we say that this is spirit, we've got a triangle with a circle up the top and a circle in each corner. This is you, and this is the person that has done you wrong. Now, when I say the person that's done you wrong, I know people out there that hold unforgiveness and hatred towards the world. So it doesn't matter who you want to put in that circle of other. So we've got spirit up the top, you on the left-hand side, others on the right-hand side. You actually can't break that cord. It's impossible to break that cord. When you walk with unforgiveness, all that happens is the cord gets thinner and thinner and thinner. But it can't break because you are a part of the collective consciousness. You're a part of spirit. So is the person that's done you wrong. You'll never change that fact. You actually can't physically disconnect yourself from them. So consequently, what happens is when we walk in forgiveness, this line gets strengthened. As we walk in forgiveness, this line gets strengthened. as we walk in love, this gets strengthened. Now the wonderful thing is, this is what you are choosing to do. You are choosing to connect to Spirit. Therefore you choose to walk in love and forgiveness. And believe it or not, if this person, the other people, don't have a connection to Spirit because they're operating out of ignorance, and actually it's not about not having a connection to Spirit, they don't know that that connection's there. Does that make more sense? They're operating out of ignorance, so they actually don't know that that connection's there. But if you choose to stay connected and you walk in forgiveness and love, you're giving this person the opportunity to connect to Spirit. Because effectively, love is Spirit. Forgiveness is Spirit. Truth is Spirit. So whenever you're directing those things towards the person that has done you wrong, you're maintaining connection with them, and this stuff, love, forgiveness and truth, does not return void. You may not see the results of it straight away, but you are actually sowing into that person's life. So by me forgiving my father, I'm giving him the opportunity to connect to Spirit. By forgiving my pastors and the people that hurt me in my church circles, I'm actually giving them the opportunity to connect to Spirit and to come to a fuller truth. Is their revelation my responsibility? Absolutely not.
No.
Their revelation of Spirit and their connection to Spirit is their responsibility, not mine. The only responsibility I have is to stay connected to Spirit and operate in love, forgiveness and truth. And that list could go on. Love, forgiveness, truth. It goes on and on and on. So this is what we're about strengthening. And the more we strengthen that, the more we're giving people another opportunity. And I'll give you a classic example of that, which I didn't even write down. It's just come to me now. A classic example of that. And before I share this, please don't think that I think I've arrived at some incredible spot of revelation and enlightenment in my life. I've got a lot more to learn. I'm human and I don't get this right 100% of the time. What I'm going for is 51% of the time. As long as I'm getting it right 51% of the time, I'm moving forward. How do I do that? I stay connected to Spirit. But these examples that are so real to me and have happened in my life are the easiest for me to share with you. So I'm learning and growing with you guys. I came out, the hardest part in my life, the hardest people that I had to come out to were my grandparents. My grandparents were extremely religious, unbelievably judgmental, and very critical. They were fanatical believers about the Bible. Now, it's funny because I was conceived out of wedlock and they wanted me aborted or adopted out. They could never love me. Ironically, I ended up their favourite out of all the grandchildren. So you can imagine how hard it was for me to come out to them because my grandfather said he wouldn't piss on a gay man if he was on fire. So it was a tough call. But I made the decision to come out. Why? Because I had maintained my connection to Spirit. I wanted to walk in love and I wanted to walk in truth, regardless of the consequence. So it meant coming out to the people that I loved the most, that were around my life at that time. Now, I ran the risk of them, meaning the others, choosing to disconnect themselves from me. Now, would I compromise that disconnection for my truth?
Yeah.
No. So I told them. In telling them, mind you, I spoke to them in love and I spoke to them in my truth. I can't manipulate your love for me anymore. I need to know that you love me for who I am, not what you think I am. I can't live a double life. If you can't love me without conditions, that's okay. But I can't compromise my truth anymore. Now, because I communicated to them in love and truth, regardless of what their reaction would be, I gave them the freedom to connect to Spirit and to see what truth was about. I left there with my grandfather saying to me, how could we not love you? We know who you are and we know your character. Whether we agree with your lifestyle or not is a completely different kettle of fish, but we love you. So even in the face of having myself hurt by others and disconnected by others, I chose to operate in love and truth, the consequence of which I gave them the opportunity to see that the way that they judge people and criticize people is not love. It's not truth. It causes disconnection, not connection. So I was able to walk with forgiveness towards them. The dynamics of our relationship have changed, and that's okay. But because I maintain the love and the forgiveness towards them, their ignorance is slowly but surely going to dissipate. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's powerful stuff, and I can't begin to tell you how this stuff has set me free. It's such an important tool in living life with everyone that's around us. Like I see people getting angry at other people when they're in the traffic. You don't know what sort of day they're having. You don't know what circumstances they've been through. You don't know where their life is at. If you want to do it, you can do it. But why don't you walk with forgiveness? Why don't you walk with grace? When someone gets the shits with me on the road and beeps their horn at me, I wave. Friendly wave. Hello. Love on it. It's amazing. Forgiveness and love are one and the same. When you walk in that forgiveness and that love, people that want to harm you or want to do things against you can't stand. They just can't stand. So from a personal perspective, it's so much easier just to let it go. I always tell my coaching clients, let go and let God. And again, that's not from a religious standpoint. It's about getting yourself connected to spirit and walking in that freedom and the liberty that brings. Because no man can hurt me. No man can take my life. No man can rob, steal from me or destroy me. Now, I'm not talking about my physical being. I'm talking about the essence of who I truly am, which is a spiritual being connected to spirit. And hey, if a man chooses to take from me, my supply is a lot more abundant. A lot more abundant. And that's what your connection to spirit brings. Because you realize that the abundance of the universe is available to you. And the way that you tap into that, again, is connecting to spirit. Now, have I gone through times where I feel like I've got nothing and I earn nothing and I don't have anything? Of course I have. It doesn't change the fact that I'm connected to spirit and my needs, miraculously, are always met. I always have food on my table. I always have a roof over my head. And the thing that I find is the more that I choose to connect to spirit, the more that I choose to serve mankind as far as the highest good is concerned, the collective consciousness is concerned, the more abundance comes my way. I'm not chasing the abundance, I'm chasing my connection to spirit. Because that's what empowers me to forgive. If I look at what some people, the insanity of society are doing out there, I've got just as much reason as the next person to be angry and to be walking with resentment and bitterness and unforgiveness. What's it going to do? Am I going to make a difference? No. The only way I'm going to make a difference is if I have that connection to spirit. I walk with forgiveness in understanding other people's ignorance. Got a little bit passionate there for a minute. So
everybody's ignorant in one stage or in their life. I'm ignorant in a lot of things still, but I'm also very awakened to a lot of things. But that's through other people being who they are, whether that be hateful towards me or because, it's not so much about the forgiveness thing. I understand where you're coming from that, but there's when you say when you're connected to spirit, nobody can take anything from you. You don't make what they have done to you something significant because it's not in that sense of negativity. It's the way a person, like what you went through.
Yes. That
was a part of your awakening because you went for your truth still as frightening and with your family, you're stepping up and you're kind of denouncing that thing that is no longer true for you.
Yes.
And so they're giving you your freedom. So
absolutely.
Whether, I've just, from people that came into my life.
Yeah.
I mean, at first I was really angry because that's naturally going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I felt betrayed or someone's done the dirty or gone and done things which to me was like abhorrent. But then I
Yes.
thought, that's their act. They've done that.
Yeah.
They've done it out of ignorance.
Yes.
But my truth is I can see that now.
Yeah.
And I don't talk to them or anything, but I still love them on that spiritual, because my spirit just loves.
Absolutely.
And it sees beyond that. But,
well,
you can just let it go. It's good. You don't have to be with that group or anything.
Absolutely.
But that's all a part of our awakening is if we see everything for what it is, then we can just rise above that.
I'm really glad you brought that up, and let me share a scripture with you. All things work together for good for those that love the Lord and diligently seek his ways and his purpose.
Absolutely.
What that means for me is if I diligently seek my connection to spirit, all things will work together for good. I wouldn't be in the place that I am if the people at church didn't operate the way that they did.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be in the place that I am if my father didn't operate the way that he did. So, and this comes back to having that connection to spirit and understanding that all things, if we can remove the judgment from all things and allow things to be as they are, we will learn and grow at a rate that most people would find hard to keep up with. Because we're removing the conditions, we're removing the judgments. And the very thing that stops that is unforgiveness. Because when you look at that situation from an unforgiveness perspective, you've separated yourself not only from the person that has done you wrong, but you've also disconnected yourself from spirit. If you can look at that situation and go, okay, well, that person has operated out of ignorance. Regardless, I'm going to walk with forgiveness and love and maintain my connection to spirit and see what it is that I can learn from this situation. All those situations in my life caused me to learn and grow in my connection to spirit and my understanding that the collective consciousness, spirit, God, again, whatever label you want to put on it, is there to support me, hold me, and carry me in the all of creation, regardless of what happens. If a behaviour doesn't serve me, I can move away from it. That's not a problem. But to be resentful and bitterness is going to rob me from an abundant life. Think about it. If you're unforgiving towards someone, does it hurt them?
Well, maybe. If they know about it.
If they know about it, they might be a bit disappointed about it. But effectively,
hurting them.
your hurt, your pain, your unforgiveness doesn't really affect the person that's done you wrong.
No, because you just let it go.
Exactly. But in you letting all that go, you've got that connection back.
Yeah.
Not only with them, but with spirit.
Yeah. Well, that's something that you can't be connected.
Exactly.
Once you're connected, you're not disconnected. You might be that you don't see them, but it doesn't mean you're not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally get that when you said that. Yeah.
Cool. So, how do we as human beings get connected to spirit? We get connected to spirit there are 101 modalities out there, but it comes through the understanding of that diagram that I drew with the big circle, the little circle which represents Earth and the dot of you, understanding that you're connected to all of that. One of the ways that I love to connect in spirit, which freaks a lot of people out, is praying in tongues. I love praying in tongues, and it bubbles up out of me more often than not, and down the track I'll share with you guys how that comes up and how you can operate out of that as well. Another great way of connecting to spirit is meditating. Now, meditating doesn't have to be sitting in the lotus position with your fingers together. It could be a walk along the beach. But understanding that there is a much bigger picture that you're a part of and letting go of the conditions. And you can, I firmly believe, you can even ask for spirit to reveal itself to you. And it will. Because anyone who seeks the truth will find it. But as I say to many of my clients, look out, because if you choose to seek the truth, you will find it. And there may be some bumpy roads along the way for you to understand the truth, but if you choose to seek truth, I have got no doubt in my mind that you will find it. How do you seek truth? You remove judgments, you remove conditions, you remove the way that things have to be, and you seek it out. Because again, love is opening. It's about receiving everything. A judgment is about closing off. To receive truth, you've got to be open. You've got to be open. So, spirit equals love, equals forgiveness, equals salvation. Now, salvation, I'm not talking about a religious perspective. I'm talking about being free. Salvation is about being free. We can create a heaven on earth for ourselves now. And the more of a heaven on earth we create for ourselves, the more of a heaven on earth we create for those around us. It's that simple. So spirit equals love, equals forgiveness, equals salvation. What's love? As I said before, nothing more than a force that brings life. Love is a force that brings life. Spirit is a force that brings life. I don't care about the label. I just want you to get the message. It's about bringing life into situations. So to look at another diagram for us to move forward, if we want to go from this to this, and we want to stop this, and we want to do this. Now, rather than do this, I'm a big fan of the word action. What's the action that needs to be taken? So we go from, if we go from unforgiveness to forgiveness, what is it that we need to stop doing?
Judgment.
Exactly. We need to stop judging. We need to stop holding on. And then what action do we need to take? We need to forgive, which is about letting go. So another way we can look at this too is we said before, unforgiveness is disconnection. So we want to go from disconnection to connection. If we want to have connection, what do? We remove the judgment. In removing the judgment, what do? We're taking action in love. If we want to go from hell to heaven, what do we have to do? Stop judging. What does that bring? Salvation. Now I could keep going and going and going and going with this, but do you get the picture? The thing that I find intriguing with this, writing it up in this fashion, actually I want to do one more. If we want to go from ignorance to wisdom, what do we have to do? Remove the judgment. Otherwise we're not going to receive. Do we all get that? And what does that bring? It brings connection to spirit. Or you could say it brings connection to truth. It brings connection to love. Again, I don't care about the label. The words are nothing more than a signpost. But if you want to go from ignorance to wisdom, then remove your judgments and get connected. It's in removing the judgments that we get connected. There's a way this has to be. And the level of freedom that brings into your life is just amazing. Any questions? You can ask the question if you want to.
The whole thing is about, this thing you call forgiveness.
Yes.
And love and salvation.
Yes.
They're all attributes that you get from your connection to spirit.
Absolutely.
And that's the underlying key to it.
Absolutely. The thing I find though, Ian, that if I was to come into this room and just tell people to get connected to spirit, although that would be powerful, there's a practical element. I'll show you this diagram. I drew this last week and I think you know this one. If this is your soul, this is your mind, and this is your body. Mm-hmm. And as we explained, we're a three-part being. So you can't have one without the other. The only thing that's eternal is your soul. But you can't have a separate experience here on earth if you don't have a mind and if you don't have a body. So it's important for those three to work together. So what I find is, although the soul, which is a part of spirit, and that's where our connection to spirit comes from, what these Sunday sessions are about is just causing people to stop and think from a mind perspective. And I find if we deal If we deal with it from a mind perspective, it brings us straight back into our soul. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't need it making sense.
You didn't need it making sense. So talking about forgiveness is basically terms that everybody knows and understands. So if I can explain to you what forgiveness is, and you receive that information, you're one step closer to a stronger connection to spirit.
Mm.
If I can share with you, which we might actually do next week, what sin is, self-identification neurosis. If I can explain to you what that is, you're one step closer to a connection to spirit. So all these things that we're going to be talking about stem from, as you said, Ian, it all stems from your connection to spirit. That's the end result. And I'm so grateful for the teaching and the foundation that's been laid in my life and the experiences that I've gone through, that I needed to work through these processes myself to understand. I needed to sit down and go, okay, well, what is forgiveness? What is it about? And the sin one, which we may very well talk about next week, was huge in my life. Because if I take you back to that story where I left the church and I was going to burn in hell, I tell you what, if you're going to burn in hell, you're going to want to know what sin is so you can avoid it. So I had to dive in and find out what really is sin. What is truth? What is love? What does it mean to listen? What does it mean to be the observer of your own life? So by me sharing these segmented bits with you, what the end result, I believe, is just a continuing strengthening of your connection to spirit. Now, on that note, the more I hear this, the stronger my connection to spirit gets. So I'm not just standing up here for you guys, I'm standing up here for me just as much. Because the thing that we very quickly forget is that what we want is the connection to spirit. But if we were 100% connected to spirit all the time and knew everything, what would be the point of having a separate experience here on earth? What would be the point? You effectively wouldn't need your mind and you wouldn't need your body. You'd be, as the Pentecostals called it, raptured. You'd be raptured straight away, up there in the heavens.
I got raptured last night.
Did you get raptured last night? We're not going to go into that. Not talking about that sort of rapture. But yeah,
you know I'm irreverent, Johnny.
I know you're irreverent, Ian, and you're probably a little bit more irreverent than me. So I love having you here. But people forget that the wonderful thing about living a life here on earth is understanding that you are here having a separate experience whilst connected to all things through all time and space. It's the duality, understanding the duality of that and having those come together and work as one to give yourself an incredibly abundant, fulfilling, free and liberated life.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're living your life connected to spirit, and whatever that is for you is going to be different for me, but we're still connected in that love.
Absolutely.
And we're always evolving through that.
Absolutely.
Which is the great thing.
Absolutely.
And we're not poking each other's eyes out, and I'm not looking at you going, you're different. You know, it's like,
Exactly.
It doesn't really matter. It's just, we just see what it is that is there connecting us.
And that's why I want this space to be what it is, because there is no dogma, there is no way it needs to be, there is no religion. I don't actually care what you define God or spirit as long as we're on the same page as far as truth is concerned, as far as love is concerned, forgiveness is concerned, what self-identification is, all those things. Because if you look at all the major religions, the foundations of what those religions were built on almost match completely. It's about love. It's about forgiveness. It's about seeking truth. It's what man's turned it into. Right. As soon as we bring conditions into it, you have to do this to be saved. You have to do this to conform to what we believe. And if we look at what religion has done to the truth of what spirit is, it's really destroyed it.
On one hand it has, Johnny, but it hasn't. Like, you know, I have Christian friends and there's a lot of people it's not the religion, it's the interpretation of it, because people have a different experience and they think, well, that's the truth, but it's not. There's a lot of people that are unified from different faiths that actually see the oneness in it.
Yes.
But that comes with love and spirit.
Absolutely.
Like true connection to spirit, not out of the theology that certain churches or temples teach.
Absolutely.
Which is a lot of fear-based.
Absolutely.
And if it's fear-based, it's not God.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's I believe that people are transcending that.
They are.
Do, and that's breaking down, and people are more just love now.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a Christian or a Muslim, we just love, we're all brothers and sisters, and that's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And what you said is the classic observation is if it's fear-based, it's not God. And it's that simple. I'm blessed. I've got Christian friends, Muslim friends, Buddhist friends.
Exactly.
I've got friends right across the board. And what do we come together with? It's love.
Love, yeah.
Now, again, love could be just another word we choose to define spirit. But all I'm interested in is connecting in love.
Yeah.
And you're right, 100% right. It's love that's going to break these walls down. And it's amazing when you actually have... I've got a few religious friends that actually love having healthy conversations. I wouldn't even call them debates, and they're certainly not arguments. But we will openly discuss things about religious circles. And it makes it so clear and simple when you say exactly what you said. Well, hang on a minute. Is this producing fear or is this producing love? Is it producing connection or is it producing disconnection? It's that simple. It is that simple. And you're right. It's the love that's going to bring everybody together. But love, again, is nothing more than a force that brings life. That's what spirit is. It's beautiful. We're over time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't mean that. Clapping because you were finished.